A pleasant day, everyone. Today we are going to report about the appropriate methods of assessment. The members are the following: Landayan Christine, Lulong Rhea Chelsea, Lopez Clark, Habonero Jimuel, and Mahusay Marcel. Now let's get started with the first reporter.
A pleasant day to everyone. I am Marcel Ash Mahusay, and I am going to report about what is the appropriate methods of assessment. So what is the appropriate methods of assessment? Appropriate methods of assessment refer to the different types of tools or techniques used to evaluate and measure the learning outcomes of students in a particular subject or course in a fair and effective manner. These methods should be selected based on the learning objectives and outcomes that need to be assessed. It will also vary depending on the goals of the assessment, the context of the assessment, and the learners being assessed. Appropriateness of assessment determines if an assessment tool is suitable for the type of topic used as learning target. Using appropriate methods of assessment is important because it ensures that the assessment measures what it is intended to measure and produces reliable and valid results. For example, if the goal is to assess students' knowledge of factual information, objective tests such as multiple choice or true or false questions may be appropriate. On the other hand, if the goal is to assess higher level cognitive skills such as critical thinking or problem solving, performance based assessment like case studies or projects may be more effective. Overall, appropriate methods of assessment help ensures that the assessment is fair, reliable, and valid, and that it provides accurate information about learners' knowledge, skills, and abilities. It is also crucial in measuring student learning outcomes effectively and accurately. Therefore, the different methods of assessment to be discussed later can provide educators and instructors with various options for evaluating student learning. This can aid them in identifying student strengths and weaknesses, providing feedback for improvement, and ultimately helping them design and deliver effective instruction. Assessment methods have to be appropriate all the time. This is not a choice but a must in order to make assessment valid.
What are the factors that we consider in making appropriate methods of assessment? First is the learning outcomes. Ask yourselves, what are the intended learning outcomes of the assessment? Are you trying to assess knowledge, skills, or attitudes? Different methods of assessment are better suited for different types of learning outcomes. For example, a multiple choice test may be appropriate for assessing knowledge, while a performance test may be better suited for assessing skills. The second factor is the purpose of assessment. What is the purpose of assessment? Different assessment methods may be more appropriate for formative versus summative assessment. The third factor to consider is student characteristic. Assessment methods should be appropriate for the developmental level and cultural background of the learner. Another factor is time and resources. Consider the feasibility of implementing different constraints of the context. In choosing assessment, we should think of how much time and what resources it takes to make it happen. Be practical and wise in choosing. Finally, we should consider the context of assessment. What is the context in which assessment will take place? Consider the factors such as subject matter, instructional format, and learning environment. Different methods may be more appropriate for different contexts. Once again, the factors to consider in making appropriate methods of assessment are learning outcomes, assessment purpose, student characteristics, time and resources, and context of assessment. I hope you learned something from my report. Thank you.
Good day everyone, I am Christine and I will report about the different appropriate methods of assessment. Let us remember that appropriate methods of assessments are those that effectively measure the intended learning objectives and provide valuable feedback to students and teachers. The different methods of assessment can be categorized based on their purpose and the type of information they provide. The first category is written response instrument, which is a category of assessment that requires students to provide weighted answers to questions or prompts. This method of assessment includes various tools like objective tests, essays, and checklists. Objective tests refers to the types of assessment that assess a definite and clear answer. It aims to measure a person's knowledge of a particular subject. Therefore, it is appropriate for assessing the various level of the hierarchy of educational objectives. The most common types of objective tests includes multiple choice, fill in the blank, matching type, and true or false questions. These types of questions are popular because they are easy to grade and provide an unbiased evaluation. First, multiple choice questions present a question with several possible answers. The test taker must choose one correct answer from the options given. Second, fill in the blank questions require the test taker to complete a sentence by filling in the missing words. Third, matching type questions require the test taker to match a list of items from one column to another. Lastly, true or false questions ask the test taker to determine whether a statement is true or false. Overall, objective tests such as multiple choice, fill in the blank, matching types, and true or false are appropriate to use when the goal is to assess specific knowledge or information. These types of tests are designed to provide objective and standardized measure of a person's knowledge or understanding of a particular subject. The next one is essays, which is a test that requires students to develop a thoughtful and coherent written response to a question or prompt. Therefore, it can test the students' grasp of higher level cognitive skills. Essays are appropriate to use when the instructor wants to assess a student's creativity, originality, understanding, and ability to demonstrate their understanding of the material in their own words and offer insight into their thoughts, processes, and perspective. As a teacher, it is also important to always give a concise and specific essay topic in assessment, as it helps students to focus their ideas and organize their thoughts. It also allows instructors to evaluate student work more efficiently. For example, instead of letting your students write an essay about what is climate change, it is better if you revise the question and make it specific, like what are the causes of climate change? This is because the first one is a broad essay topic and can be overwhelming for students and may lead to a lack of focus and coherence in their writing. Lastly, checklists are a list of several characteristics or activities presented to the subject of study where they will analyze and place a mark opposite to the characteristics. They provide a simple and objective way to record and evaluate performance. Checklists are also efficient to use and can provide detailed feedback to students on their performance. The second category is product weighting scales, which are appropriate to use when evaluating products such as book reports, maps, charts, diagrams, notebooks, and creative endeavors that students create. It allows teachers to assign weightings to different criteria that are used to evaluate the quality of the product, providing a consistent and objective way to assess performance of students. Therefore, product weighting scales are a suitable assessment method when the focus is on evaluating the quality and providing feedback to students. An example of a product weighting scale is a graphic weighting scale, which is a scale that uses a numerical weighting system to evaluate a product based on specific criteria. For example, a teacher may use a graphic weighting scale to assess students' diorama. The weighting scale may include criteria such as creativity, craftsmanship, and accuracy. Each category could be rated on a scale of 1 to 5. This method helps to standardize the evaluation process and ensure that each student is evaluated in a fair and consistent manner. Other examples include rubric scale that assesses using a detailed description of expected performance for each criterion. Next is percentage scale that assesses using a numerical score based on a percentage of correct items or points earned. Next is holistic scale that assesses by assigning a single score based on the overall assessment of work quality. And lastly, analytic scale that evaluates different aspects of work separately and assigns scores to each aspect. The third category is called performance checklist, which consists of a list of behaviors that make up a certain type of performance. It is used to determine whether or not an individual behaves in a certain way when asked to complete a particular task. To be more specific, it is a tool used to evaluate a person's performance based on a list of specific behaviors or tasks. This type of assessment is useful in evaluating skills that require a specific sequence of actions. It is also helpful in assessing progress in learning and monitoring the acquisition of skills. For example, a performance checklist may be used to evaluate a student's ability to conduct a science experiment. The checklist would include a list of specific steps, such as the steps in the table below. The teacher or evaluator would then observe the student as they perform the experiment and use the checklist to assess the student's performance based on the specific behavior listed. This type of assessment would provide a clear understanding of the student's strengths and weaknesses in conducting science experiments and would help to identify areas for improvement. The fourth category is called oral questioning, which is suitable for assessing students' talk knowledge and their ability to communicate ideas in coherent verbal sentences. This method is particularly useful for evaluating students' communication skills and their ability to think on their feet. Example of these are oral recitations. The last category is observation and self-reports, which are useful supplementary methods when used in conjunction with other assessment methods, such as oral questioning and performance tests. To be more specific, observation is a method of assessment that involves watching and recording the behavior of the learner while they are completing a task or activity. For example, a teacher may observe a student during a science experiment and use tally sheets to take notes on how they conduct the experiment, how they handle equipment, and how they analyze and interpret the results. Self-reports, on the other hand, are methods of assessment that involve asking students to reflect on their own learning experiences and provide feedback on their own performance. For example, a teacher may ask students to complete a self-assessment form or self-checklist after a project or presentation where they are asked to reflect on their strengths and weaknesses, identify areas for improvement, and suggest ways to enhance their performance in the future. Overall, choosing an appropriate method of assessment is crucial because each method is designed to measure specific skills, knowledge, and abilities. Using an inadequate method may lead to incomplete results, providing an incomplete understanding of a student's strengths and weaknesses. Hence, by understanding and selecting appropriate assessment methods, teachers can ensure that the results are reliable and valid. These results can then be used to inform teaching and learning strategies leading to improved students' outcomes. Thank you so much for listening, and now let's proceed to the next reporter about the relevance of appropriate methods of assessment.
Hi guys, I'm Rhea Chalsay Bilolong, and this part of the report, I will share to you the relevance of the appropriate methods of assessment. So let's begin with number one. Number one is ensuring validity. Using appropriate methods of assessment helps ensure that the assessment measures what it is intended to measure. This is important for ensuring the validity of the assessment result. So what's the meaning of this? Let's expound it. Assessment design measures a student's knowledge or skills. Validity means the assessment measures what is intended to measure. So if it doesn't, the results may be inaccurate and it will lead to unfair assessment. So to ensure accuracy, we need to use appropriate methods that are aligned with our learning objectives. Valid assessment provide accurate information for informed teaching and learning decisions and help students identify their strengths and weaknesses to improve their learning outcomes. So number two is ensuring reliability. So what is ensuring reliability? Using appropriate methods of assessment also helps ensure that the assessment produces consistent and reliable results. This is important for ensuring that the assessment is fair, and accurate. So, to expound this text again, assessment must produce consistent and reliable results in addition to measuring what is intended. So, reliability means consistent and stable results each time a student takes the same assessment. So, the unreliable assessments make it difficult to make accurate and fair judgment about the student's performance. Like, for example, a student could receive a different score on the same test if taken on different days, even if their knowledge or skills haven't changed. So using appropriate methods of assessment that produce consistent and reliable results is crucial for fair, accurate, and useful assessment to guide teaching and learning. So number three. Number three is meeting learning objectives. So using appropriate methods of assessment ensures that the assessment is aligned with the learning objectives and goals. This helps ensure that the assessment provides useful information about learners' progress and achievement. So, usay meaning ani? So let's expound it again. Assessment should align with learning objectives and goals to measure important knowledge or skills. Misaligned assessments may not provide useful information about learners' progress or their achievements. So appropriate assessment promotes students' engagement and motivation when they understand the value of the assessments in relation to their learning goals. So overall, aligning assessment with learning objectives and goals is very crucial for useful assessment information and promoting students' engagement in learning. So next is number 4. Providing actionable feedback. Using appropriate methods of assessment also helps ensure that the assessment provides actionable feedback to learners and teachers. This feedback can be used to identify areas of strengths and weaknesses and to guide further instruction and learning. So, what does this mean again? So, assessment should provide actionable feedback to help students improve. This means specific information about strengths and weaknesses and guidance on how to improve. So, feedback is important for informed decision making and to adjust teaching strategies. So, actionable feedback is very crucial for identifying strengths and weaknesses, guiding learning, and promoting a collaborative environment. And lastly, number 5, promoting students' engagement. Using appropriate methods of assessment can also promote students' engagement and motivation. When assessment tasks are meaningful and relevant to students, they are more likely to be engaged and invested in their own learning. So to elaborate this text, engaged and motivated students, as we all know, learn more effectively and achieve better results. So to promote engagement and motivation, we need to use appropriate assessment methods that are meaningful and relevant to our students. So meaningful assessment increase students' value and seriousness in the assessment. Like for example, real-world application projects engage and motivated more than traditional multiple choice tests. So engaged and motivated students actively participate, ask questions, and seek additional resources for learning. So, using appropriate methods of assessment that are meaningful and relevant to the student is indeed very, very crucial for promoting the student's engagement and motivation that will lead to better learning outcomes. So, that's all for this part of the report. I hope my explanation was clear and concise. So, next up, Mr. Haborillero will discuss to you the conclusion of this report. So, thank you for listening. Bye!
In conclusion, selecting appropriate methods of assessment is critical for evaluating students' learning outcomes effectively and fairly. In addition, appropriate methods of assessment are important in ensuring that this assessment accurately measures the learning outcomes and objectives that are intended. Using appropriate methods of assessment can also help educators and institutions to better understand the strengths and weaknesses of their students and curriculum, and to make informed decisions about how to improve and adapt their teaching practices. It is important to carefully consider the learning outcomes that are intended and to select the most appropriate method of assessment to measure those outcomes. Therefore, by using appropriate methods of assessment, educators can ensure that their students are receiving high-quality education and that they are well prepared for success in their future endeavors. To be more specific, appropriate methods of assessment are essential in ensuring that students receive a fair and accurate evaluation of their academic progress. Assessment methods should align with the learning outcomes and objectives, be age appropriate, and cater to students' diverse learning needs. Using inappropriate assessment methods can lead to an unfair evaluation of students' abilities, which can impact their self-esteem, motivation, and academic performance negatively. Educators and institutions must therefore invest time in selecting and implementing appropriate assessment methods, which will provide students with valuable feedback on their learning progress. Moreover, when students are assessed using the right methods, it enables them to identify areas where they need to improve and also areas where they excel. As a result, students can better focus on their learning needs and work towards improving their overall academic performance. Overall, appropriate methods of assessment are critical to promoting high-quality education and preparing the students for success in their future careers. Therefore, educators and institutions must prioritize the selection and implementation of appropriate assessment methods to ensure students' academic success. Thank you so much for listening, and this will be the end of our report.